Good evening, buenas noches, and thank you for tuning in. On behalf of all of us at Books and Books in Miami, Florida, and in partnership with Miami Book Fair, I welcome you to a virtual evening with our friend Stephen Raichlen to celebrate the publication of How to Grill Vegetables, the new Bible for barbecuing vegetables over live fire, published by Workman. Stephen Raichlen is the author of the New York Times best-selling Barbecue Bible Cookbook series, which includes the new Brisket Chronicles, Project Fire, Barbecue Sauces, Rubs, and Marinades, Project Smoke, The Barbecue Bible, and How to Grill. Winners of 5 James Beard Awards and 3 IACP Awards, his books have been translated into 17 languages. His TV shows include the public television series Stephen Reichlen's Project Fire, Project Smoke, Primal Grill, and Barbecue University. Steve is the founder and dean of Barbecue University, and in 2015, he was inducted into the Barbecue Hall of Fame. To moderate tonight's conversation, we're joined by the owner of Books and Books, my boss, Mitchell Kaplan. Mitchell is the Miami Beach native who founded the independent bookstore chain Books and Books in 1982. He's the co-founder of Miami Book Fair, a former president of the American Booksellers Association, and the host of the podcast, The Literary Life with Mitchell Kaplan. And most importantly, he's a vegetarian, or at least a pescatarian, so this book is right up his alley. Throughout this evening's broadcast, you're invited to ask questions by using the Ask a Question feature at the bottom of the screen, and you can order your copy of How to Grill Vegetables from Books and Books below by pressing the green button. We appreciate each and every order and the generous donations from viewers everywhere. And now, without further ado, I'd like to welcome our guests to the virtual stage. Hello, Stephen.
Hi.
Hello, Mitchell.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Stephen. How are you?
I am great tonight. I know we had a few technical hiccups last time, so I'm really happy to be on the screen with you.
Yeah, I'm happy to have everybody here. Thank you for your patience. Thanks for coming back. And Stephen, I have to tell you, this is a little bittersweet for me because we've presented you through all of your barbecue books, pretty much, and most of them, and you would always come with these amazing kind of like tastings that we could all have, but because they were mostly beef and sometimes chicken, I couldn't really partake of them. But this one is about vegetables, and I would be eating myself sick. But the fact is, it's virtual, so we don't have any, and I'm just going to have to kind of live with it, you know, kind of vicariously as I read through the book. But thank you so much for being here. And I also have to tell you that one of my favorite headlines that I saw in somebody writing about the book was very simply, "The Julia Child of Barbecue takes on vegetables." And that is you. So the question that I have for you is why and why now?
Well, Mitchell, I wish I could say I wrote this book solely because eating vegetables is good for you. Eating vegetables is good for the planet. Eating vegetables is a way to thank you for putting up with all my meat-centric books over the years. But to be honest with you, it was really written in self-defense. You see, my daughter is a vegetarian. My cousin's a vegetarian. My wife has strong vegetarian leanings. So this was a way to keep everybody in my good graces.
That makes perfect sense. So as you did this in self-defense, give me a sense of, you know, when you conceive a book that is grilling, where you're grilling meats, tell me what the difference is when you have to put together a book in which you're grilling vegetables.
Absolutely. Well, you know, and first of all, that last comment I made a little bit tongue-in-cheek because if you've read my previous books, you know I love grilled vegetables. You know, I was thinking about there's sort of been a progression. When I was a kid and growing up, I mean, vegetables at best were an afterthought, maybe potato salad, coleslaw. Nobody would ever dream of grilling vegetables. And when I wrote my first barbecue book, Barbecue Bible, maybe it was grilled corn, maybe it was grilled mushrooms, but nobody really did kind of a lot of creative grilling with vegetables. But now vegetables have moved from the periphery to the plate to the center of the plate. You probably just heard that 11 Madison Park in New York City, that fabulous and fabulously expensive Michelin 3-star palace is now going to serve a strictly vegan menu. So to answer your question specifically, vegetables, there's tremendous variety of vegetables. And the first lesson I learned is that this is not a one-size-fits-all in terms of cooking methods. There's some vegetables that do best with high dry heat of direct grilling. They tend to be your high water content vegetables like zucchini, mushrooms, corn. There are other vegetables that are denser and firmer, and they do better with indirect grilling. Those would be like your winter squashes, would be like your sort of large vegetables, potatoes.
Steve, for those of us who might not know, just define direct versus indirect grilling.
Yes, of course. So direct grilling, when the fire is under the food, you're working over a high heat. In the old days, I would have said you direct grill a steak, a chicken breast, a burger. These days, I'll say you direct grill a portobello mushroom, you direct grill zucchini, you direct grill corn, anything that prospers that requires a high heat and a short cooking time. Indirect grilling, you set up your grill so that the fire is on the outside or the periphery of the grill. Your food is in the center where my head is. You close the grill lid, and in effect, you turn your grill into an outdoor oven. With this difference that you can add wood chips or chunks to the fire, thereby creating wood smoke, turning your grill into a smoker. So vegetables that you might indirect grill, I mean, the classic, and there's a great recipe in the book, it's an acorn squash cut in half, indirect grilled on a salt slab, and then 3/4 of the way through, you put a Parmesan custard in the two halves. And you continue indirect grilling, and the Parmesan custard sets. It flavors the squash, the sweet squash flavors the Parmesan flan, and it's amazing. It's just amazing.
I have to show everybody because Workman does such an amazing job with all your books, and this is one that's kind of remarkable. This is the book itself, and what I love about it is that if you're not a grill person, if you haven't grilled before, all you need is this book to begin to learn how to do it. He starts off in the very first chapter is how to grill vegetables like a pro in 9 easy steps. And Steve, tell us what you say with those 9 easy steps. You talk about picking out a grill, picking out a smoker.
Picking out the grill first, picking out your fuel second, because, vegetables can be grilled over gas, over charcoal, over wood, which is my favorite. Vegetables can be smoked. Talk about the methods. Vegetables can be roasted on the rotisserie. A whole cauliflower head, for me, that's the vegetable equivalent of a pork shoulder. Vegetables can be roasted on the embers, caveman style. I love grilling vegetables that way. And the classic vegetable that comes to mind is eggplant or sweet potatoes, which you lay on the embers. You actually char in the embers. The burnt skin drives the smoke in the center. That's what gives you the smoky flavor of baba ganoush. But vegetables differ from meats in a couple of essential ways, which is also important to keep in mind, right? So number one, all meats have some degree of fat, and good meats, really good prime steaks, have a lot of marbling. That keeps the meat moist during grilling. Vegetables do not contain fat, with the exception of avocado. It's actually botanically a fruit, but we treat it as a vegetable. So you need to add fat back when you're grilling a vegetable. And one way to add fat is, let's say, with an oil-based marinade. It could be a flavorful oil like olive oil or sesame oil. Another is basting the vegetables at grills with butter, or I make something called charcoal butter, where you actually take a charcoal briquette, right? And you plunge it in a pot of melted butter. You get this Vesuvian hiss, smoke and flames. And when all subsides and you pull out the ember, you have melted butter that tastes like charcoal. It tastes like a charcoal grill smells. I mean, it's so I would say in a funny way, this book really challenged my creativity as much or even more than any of my other books, precisely because I'm trying to give vegetables that charcoal, smoky flavor from the grill.
I'm going to throw out some of my favorite vegetables, and you tell me how you've creatively presented them here, some of the things. So I happen to be a big avocado guy. I love avocado. So I know you have something very interesting that you do with avocado and guacamole. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So two dishes in the book that come to mind. Number one is a smoked avocado guacamole. So in a nutshell, you smoke the avocado, and I tell you how to do it on a charcoal grill. And then you make guacamole. And then for dipping, it's flour tortillas that are brushed with butter, grilled, not deep fried, so a lot healthier, sprinkled with sesame seeds, and used as dippers. Now, I have in past books called smoke the umami of barbecue, but wood smoke has this amazing property of taking commonplace foods and making them taste otherworldly and making you discover them and experience them in a totally new way. And I guarantee you, when you taste smoked guacamole, it's just amazing. The other thing I do is I cut an avocado in half. I grill it over a hot fire. So I put grill marks, kind of char the surface. And that is served, one version is served with a Spanish grilled tomato and roasted nut sauce called salvichata. And the other is a funny kind of salsa made with pepperdew peppers and raisins and capers and olives. It's a little bit salty, but there's your avocado. Next, this is really fun. It's like Jeopardy a little bit, right?
Well, next, I like simple stuff.
Okay.
So let's talk about just something simple like ricotta cheese and tomatoes, for instance.
Beautiful. Well, super simple. Tomato is one of the few vegetables that, the other thing about vegetables is that in general, they are dry. They're not moist like raw meat or raw fish. Okay, so when you smoke them, it's difficult to get them to absorb the wood smoke. But tomatoes, because when you cut them in half, they're so wet, so juicy, they are perfect absorbers of wood smoke. So I'm thinking of a dish that I had at a restaurant called Rovi in London, created by Yotam Ottolenghi. And there, the bread, and this is a very chic restaurant with an amazing wood-burning grill that's the focal point of the restaurant, and it's a vegetable-centric menu. Yeah, you can order meat if you want to, but it's not really the spirit of the restaurant. So a slice of country-style bread, grilled over a wood fire. Remember, the grill is the original toaster. Tomatoes that are blistered over a smoky wood fire, and creamy ricotta cheese, which is also smoked, goes on top of the toast, and then the tomatoes. Super simple, but absolutely symphonic in its in the way it eats.
And we also get a little bit of protein in that too, right?
Protein. Sure.
All right, now this is going to sound a little weird. I happen to be a huge fan of okra. I am a big okra guy.
Okay.
People make fun of me when I eat my okra, but I can eat whole okras. I can eat, cut up, sliced up okra. Give me your best shot at okra.
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, because I think I have solved a problem that is going to make millions of okra haters into okra lovers. Okay, so the habitual problem with okra is what? It becomes slimy when you cook it, and it especially becomes slimy when you cut, or mucilaginous maybe is a more literary way of saying that than slimy. But when you cut an okra and expose the inside to oxygen, that mucilaginous quality becomes accentuated. So what I do, taking a clue from the Japanese, is leave the okra pods whole, and you just trim off the little tip of the stem, but you leave the inside whole. That's very important. And you pin the okra together. You lay them side by side, pin them together in a raft. So 4 okras pinned together with toothpicks, like that. Okay? Brush the okra raft with sesame oil, season it with salt, pepper, and grill it over a high heat. What this does is it never has a chance to become slimy. The high heat makes the okra crisp. The sesame oil gives you this wonderful Asian flavor. And I actually love grilled okra so much, I give 3 separate recipes for in the book. So you have the Asian version there. Another one I really like, and this is more in keeping with the southern style of okra. Okra grilled the same way, and then you make homemade pimento cheese. Now, traditional pimento cheese is made what? With bottled or canned pimentos.
Right.
But here I start with red bell peppers. I char the peppers in the embers because you get the smoke flavor. So it's a homemade pimento cheese. And you get a dollop of that on top of this raft of okra. It's it's super amazing. The final way, again, grilling the whole okra pods, and I make a Malaysian coconut curry dip. And you eat the okra, you dip the grilled okra pods in the curry dip, and that's, it's fabulous. I'm so glad you like okra, Mitchell. It's one of my favorite vegetables too.
Well, and you know what sounds cool about it? These don't sound like very complicated complicated things to make.
They are easy to make, but the flavors are very complex and very sophisticated.
Oh yeah. But it wouldn't take you that long to do it. I don't.
5 minutes. 5 minutes.
All right, here along the lines of maligned vegetables, Brussels sprouts.
Yeah.
Tell me about Brussels sprouts.
Well, Brussels sprouts are maligned because they are cabbagey and they're Brussels sprouty. I actually happen to like them, but anyway, one simple recipe, one totally amazing but slightly complicated recipe. Okay, the simple recipe: I make a kebab with Brussels sprouts, dates, so for sweetness. I do place a slice of bacon between each half Brussels sprouts because this is a vegetable forward book. It's not a strictly vegetarian book. I made a vow to my publisher that there'd be about 10 recipes, 10% of the book would contain meat, and I made a vow to my carnivorian friends that if meat would make a vegetable taste better, then meat there would be. So I find that the smoky, bacony flavor of the Brussels sprouts is great. Okay, that's the easy one. Simple kebab, you grill it like a kebab. The really cool version. You know how in November in produce sections of good supermarkets, you see whole Brussels sprout stalks? And first of all, the first time they're about 18, 20 inches long, might have 50 to 70 individual Brussels sprouts. And that almost looks like a tree that instead of pine cones, that sprouts Brussels sprouts. Well, I got one of those whole ones, and I thought, this has to be spit roasted, right? So I wired the thing to the spit of a rotisserie, and I spit roasted it over a charcoal fire with wood chunks added for wood smoke flavor. And you serve the thing. It's almost like you're serving a whole beef tenderloin, only you're slicing off Brussels sprouts and basted with turmeric butter. And that's really cool.
It sounds unbelievable.
Again, it's pretty simple.
Yeah, no, it sounds simple too. The other thing that I enjoyed reading about was what you did, with these smoke roasted salads, the grilled wedge salad. Talk about that a little bit as well.
Yeah, well, grilled salads, something I've been doing. The first dish I ever learned to make as a kid was Caesar salad. So when I started grilling, I cut a head of romaine lettuce in half and I grilled it. And that Caesar salad I always do a rendition of a grilled Caesar salad in one of my grill books. And this one, I've kind of turned it into an open-faced sandwich. And the crouton becomes a slice of bread that is grilled. The lettuce goes on top of it. The coddled egg becomes a smoked egg. The dressing is a Parmesan cream. And then if you want to put anchovies on, you can. But that's not the one I'm really excited about. The one I'm really excited about is there is a smoked lettuce salad. Now, this takes me back to a discovery I made in central Italy many years ago when I had something called scamorza, which is a smoked mozzarella cheese. And this is a buffalo mozzarella dripping with whey, incredible haunting smoke flavor. So I managed to persuade the cheesemonger to send me to the smokehouse where they made it. And I, like at all smokehouses, I was looking for a big pile of logs, and I saw none. And the smoker turned out to be, it was sort of not much more than a big cardboard box. And in the bottom, they put a handful of hay, which they set on fire.
Wow.
And the hay emitted this blast of smoke that lasted all of 2 minutes. So enough to lay a patina of smoke on the cheese, but short enough not to melt the cheese, right? Because that's the big problem with smoking cheese. And I thought, okay, so smoking lettuce. Now, if you smoke lettuce in a smoker on a grill, right, it's going to wilt because the heat will just kill it. But you can take lettuce, and if you hay smoke it, with hay on one side of your grill, lettuce on the other side of your grill over a pan of ice, the whole process is a minute or two, and the lettuce stays crisp. So that's the smoked lettuce salad. That's really cool. The wet salad you were talking about, that was a direct grill because iceberg lettuce, it's firm enough to withstand the high, dry heat of the grill.
Now, a kind of, and we're in Miami, so a kind of pièce de résistance for those of us in Miami is when I read about your paella, your vegetable paella. That's a fantasy of all vegetarians living in Miami, is that there is a vegetable grilled paella. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I do. And I like this because this is a party dish. And, I think one of the most appealing things to me about grilling is that it is a communal activity, right? You don't generally grill for one person. Cook a pot of soup, nobody gathers around the stove to watch it simmer. Light a grill, and everybody gathers around, and it's a party. And this, so with the paella, I mean, paella inherently, it's a dish to be shared, and it's a dish to be cooked in front of people, with people around your grill. And I do it with vegetables. I do it a little differently than they do in Spain. In Spain, the vegetables would be sautéed in the paella pan. I actually grill the vegetables over a wood fire separately, so you're infusing the vegetables with wood smoke. And then it's a pretty classic preparation for paella. It was a dish that was particularly poignant because as I was developing it, and then as we were filming it on my Project Fire TV show, when I made it at home, we couldn't have anybody over to eat it because of COVID. And when we did it on the set, it was a lock set, and we were practicing social distancing. So everybody kind of had to look at it from afar. But now that things are lifting, it's nice if you're a vegetarian. It's even nice if you're a carnivore and you might have a vegetarian or two at your barbecue, and you can serve them something other than potato salad.
Well, lastly, it's funny. I have one of those kinds of stomachs that I have a hard time having onions in it, chopped onions everywhere. But I can eat whole onions. So talk about grilling whole onions and what you propose.
Oh boy. Well, my favorite way to grill whole onions. It's caveman style. Build a charcoal fire, rake out the embers, get rid of the grill grate, lay the onions right on the coals.
Wow.
And you char them. It's about a half an hour, turning them with tongs. Wear long sleeve leather gloves so you don't burn your hands, until they are jet black. And this is a great recipe, by the way, for people who have a tendency to burn food. Once the onions come off, you cut them in half. What you'll find is that the inside is supernaturally sweet. It's smoky because of all that charred onion.
It's the sweet aspect of it that is so surprising.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And then from there, you can sprinkle with a few drops of balsamic vinegar and honey. What I think I do there is I scoop out the onion, and then it's sautéed with a little barbecue sauce and put back in that charred onion shell. It's a recipe that I got from a restaurant in Somerville, Massachusetts. And by the way, I hope I'm sort of tipping my hat as to how I write my books with this. But, you've heard tonight about Malaysia. You've heard tonight about Spain. You've heard tonight about Japan. And first thing I do when I'm planning to write a book is I pack a suitcase. And all of my books, I travel. I call it the world's barbecue trail, but I'm either physically or mentally traveling the world's barbecue trail to come up with ideas and flavors and techniques.
Well, that's what I think a lot of people don't know about you, is that that you really travel the world finding in every little nook and cranny, the best culinary experiences that you can, whether it's on the street, whether it's in a restaurant or anywhere else. And then you bring them together for all of us in a book that seems like it just sprang out of your mind. But, there's a lot of hidden things about Stephen that a lot of people don't know. For instance, Steve has a BA in French Lit, which a lot of people don't know. He's also a prominent member of the Books and Books French Book Club, where they all read books in French, so he's still doing that. He studied medieval cooking in Europe. I can only imagine what that was like. He had a Fulbright to study comparative lit. He trained at the Cordon Bleu. These are things that not everyone knows about you, and it makes you really, really unique in the way you view the world of cooking, because you look at it in a very holistic, cultural sort of way as well. Would you agree with that? I mean, I don't want to embarrass you by all of that. He also plays a mean guitar. You can see it in the back right there. But
well, thank you, Mitchell. So I do have a degree in French literature, and I keep it up, as you said, with that wonderful French book club. And we've been meeting virtually for the 15 months of COVID, and we can't wait to get back to meeting in person. But
I guess the question is, how did you get into all of this to begin with that background?
So when I graduated from Reed, I won this Watson Foundation Fellowship to study medieval cooking in Europe. Tom Watson founded IBM, and what I realized that year was that what I wanted to make my life's work was studying the intersection of food and history and culture. And in a sense, I've been doing that ever since. It's just changed every year. I started out as a restaurant critic for Boston Magazine. Then I was the wine and spirits columnist for GQ magazine. My mentor at the time, Anne Willan, who founded the La Varenne Cooking School in Paris, said to me one day, Stephen, you'll never make a living writing cookbooks. So, of course, I decided I wanted to write cookbooks. But I keep coming back to that intersection of food and history and culture. That's what fascinates me. And I guess what I love about barbecue, which I sort of got into full time about 20 years ago, is that all of those things come together. I mean, if you think about the discovery of fire and what it did, it turned an ape-like human ancestor called Homo erectus into this cunning, thinking, language-using Homo sapiens that dominated the world. If you think about religion, the animal sacrifice was a common element in three main Western religions. St. Lawrence was the patron saint of cooks. He was the guy that was immolated. His torture was being burned alive on a barbecue grill. Supposedly, he told his torturers, this side's done, turn me over. But almost every culture has grilling. And grilling is more than a cooking method in culture. Grilling really gives meaning to the culture itself. So I think that's what has kept me in this field, what keeps me continuously fascinated.
And I think what you do in this book too, and it goes with your own sensibility, is you with the planet as it is today, you're looking at vegetables in a very sustainable way and what vegetables do for the planet. You want to speak to that a little bit?
Well, I do. And there's a little box in the book that explains just how much land and energy is used to raise beef, how much land and energy is used to raise corn, chicken, poultry, and then finally how much land and energy are used to raise vegetables. And vegetables are much more efficient use of our resources and our land than meat. I mean, that's just a simple fact. I'm not on a soapbox beating people over the head to say, eat only vegetables. But I think we would all agree, Mom said it best, eat your vegetables. We would all agree that vegetables are part of a healthy diet. And I think I certainly eat much more vegetables now. My meat eating is very much in line with the Asian way of eating meat. I was born in Japan, maybe that's why, but it's a little bit of meat, a lot of vegetables. Eat less meat, eat better meat, eat lots of vegetables. To me, that's a prescription for a very healthy diet.
That's I think for everybody. I also want to remind everybody listening that you can go to ask a question, and I'd love to. We're going to go to questions shortly, and I'd love it if you can put some questions there, so we'll have some that we can ask Stephen. When you're putting a book like this together, and I think part of what you do is also you want to teach. You're a natural teacher, so you have a vegetable abecedarium. You've got an amazing, it's a cookbook with a really terrific index. You even have a glossary, within this book. It's kind of like one-stop shopping when you buy this book. You need nothing more than this book to basically go down that road of either eating only vegetables or adding vegetables to whatever meal, to whatever beef eating meal or chicken eating meal that you might have. But I wanted to change course just a little bit. And we're coming off of this pandemic. The restaurant industry, has been devastated in many, many different ways. Could you, and I know that you're very close to so many restaurateurs. In fact, Jose Andres says of this book, Raichlen has done it again. I'm so happy that he has turned his focus to the amazing, versatile, yet underrated world of vegetables, creating some of the most exciting ways to use live fire. If you love to grill and want to learn something new, then this is a perfect book for you. Stephen is truly the master of the grill. You then have quotes by Nancy Silverton. You mentioned Ottolenghi. Can you give us all your perception of where we are after the pandemic in the world of restaurants?
We are broken. Restaurants are broken. Restaurants are crushed. But restaurateurs are incredibly versatile and incredibly. There's the survival. They're nimble. They're resourceful, and I believe they will come back. We've been very lucky and very spoiled down here in Miami. First of all, because we can eat outdoors all year round, and so many of our restaurants stayed open. They've certainly been open longer. They've been able to serve people longer. But the restaurant industry has taken a terrible blow. And we tried to support restaurants with by carryout when that was all that was available. We will certainly support them when they open up again. Think of a guy like Jose. We sent him the galleys of the book and asked if he would consider writing a blurb for the book. I mean, this is a guy who was in a gas mask on national television, feeding tens of thousands of first responders, probably not even knowing if a gas mask would protect him sufficiently. And that he took the time out to write a quote for this book. I cannot tell you how much that meant. And Jose, I mean, wherever you are, I thank you. And I hope you come back bigger, better, and stronger than ever.
Do you think there'll be a different way that people approach eating in restaurants? Do you think we may get back to a kind of simplicity, just because of what we all went through? One of the things I noticed in Miami particularly, so many of the cities in Miami had ordinances against outdoor dining, strangely enough. But then when they were trying to encourage restaurants to stay in business, they allowed them to be outdoor cafes. And I found that to be absolutely wonderful. When you walk down the streets of Coral Gables and you see all these outdoor cafes. Do you think we might see some permanent changes along those lines?
I think we absolutely will. And I was in New York last week for the a television event for my book tour, and I hadn't, I actually hadn't been on a plane for months and months and months. But to get New York is sort of, it's sprouted all along the streets. It sprouted these outdoor cafes, these pods, these cabanas. It's totally transformed, and the result has been to make New York a much more pedestrian-friendly place, a much more outdoor dining place, people place, and much less a car place. And I hope that's a change that will be permanent.
And I think that's what I meant. I meant people going for a more, they want to dress more casually. They don't necessarily want to get dressed up to go to a fancy restaurant. But the same level of service and food can happen in a much more kind of laid-back environment, I think.
Well, I think this last 15 months have made us think a lot about what's important.
Exactly.
And what's really important is breaking bread with people.
With friends. Yeah.
Friends and with family. What's really important is food that is sustaining and food that is nourishing and that sustains your soul. And, food is a weapon, food is a status symbol. I think that all feels kind of silly now.
It does. Tell me, your lovely wife, Barbara, who you share your life with in Miami and in Martha's Vineyard. Tell me what not a typical meal, but if you're grilling, what would a grilled meal look like with both of you? And maybe you have a couple of friends over as well.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I'll think of one recently. So in the vegetable department, we did grilled corn with brown butter and Mizithra cheese. That was really simple and luscious. We do a grilled artichoke with a harissa mayonnaise, and that's simply mayonnaise with harissa, North African hot sauce mixed in. That's pretty fantastic. The squash dish that I described earlier, if we're going vegetarian, it's an acorn squash, smoke roasted on a salt slab. You invert it, you put this custard, this Parmesan custard. That is a beautiful dish. If we're continuing to go meatless, there's a really great Indian kebab. It's paneer cheese, which is like halloumi, a grilling cheese, tomatoes, bell peppers, onions, and the whole shebang. It's grilled. The cheese has the property of being able to heat, sizzle, and soften without melting. And the whole shebang is basted with a saffron butter. So it's simple, but the flavors are complex and exotic and otherworldly at the same time.
And it's why we all love you, Steve, in that you can be describing a meal and you can work in the whole shebang into that description. That is kind of amazing. Before we get to questions, I want to ask you about something that I keep going to over and over in my mind, and that is the incredible dessert that you have here. That's a grilled banana pudding. I just, even though bananas are more of a fruit, I guess, but I cannot imagine what that is like. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, banana pudding is kind of a staple at traditional barbecue restaurants. And it's usually made with boxed pudding mix, vanilla wafers, and bananas. I've never quite figured out how that became a traditional conclusion to a barbecue.
Is that to clean the palate in some way, or to make it sweeter or something? I don't know.
Or put the final nail in the coffin. One of the two. I'm not sure.
That too.
Yeah. But at any rate, so I thought, well, how can we, and it has nothing to do with barbecue. So I'm just kind of thinking, well, how can we harness the flavor boosting power of the grill and turn banana pudding into something that actually reflects barbecue, that is barbecue? So I thought, okay, well, let's take bananas, let's brush them with melted butter, sprinkle them with cinnamon sugar, grill them over a screaming hot fire, so that we turn that sugar and butter into caramel. We caramelize the bananas. And then when we layer the bananas with a homemade pudding, not a sort of instant pudding mix, well, then you have something.
That's great, Steve.
And I do like to put a dessert chapter in all of my books. The last book, The Brisket Chronicles, which if any vegetarians are listening, I apologize for mentioning, but I did actually end that with brisket chocolate chip cookies.
I have to tell you that brisket book really tried my vegetarianism, because when I ate meat, brisket was my favorite meat to eat, actually.
Yeah. That was
particularly from delis. Deli brisket sandwiches were the best. We have some really good questions.
Let's do it.
First, what is your favorite go-to veggie recipe for the grill? So of all these recipes, what is there one that's your favorite?
I would have to say grilled corn. I mean, there's something about the high, dry heat of the grill, the way it caramelizes the natural plant sugars in the corn. It's fun. You get to eat it with your hands. But I actually have a technique where you strip the husk back, but you leave it attached to the base of the corn. You kind of fold it under the corn, so it forms a handle. So you can eat grilled corn, but like with your hands, but without getting messy. And I probably have done 20 different versions of grilled corn over the years. So that's a real favorite.
Someone says, I'm so hungry right now.
Me too.
What is your most memorable culinary experience?
Oh boy, there have been so many that is really hard to pick one out. But how about, can I rephrase that question, because it would give you a surprising answer? I'll come back to that. I'm sure there's one I'm not thinking of, but it would be, if you could pick your last meal, before your last day on Earth, your last meal on Earth, what would it be? And that would be Maryland steamed crab. Sorry, folks, it's not vegetables.
Wow.
I grew up in Baltimore, and to me, the steamed crab is just, it's the ultimate food. Plus, it takes about 18 hours to eat a dozen crabs, because you're picking each one so you can expand your life. Most memorable meal, maybe in the context of this book, there's a Japanese rabatayaki bar. Rabatayaki is a grill parlor in Tokyo called Inakaya, and in rabatayaki, it's tiny portions of grilled foods served almost in bite-sized portions. So one of them, let's see, that's where I discovered the grilled okra I described to you. That's where I discovered grilled corn. It was Hokkaido corn, and it was so sweet that it didn't need anything. It was like eating corn that was channeling sugar, only it was just the pure corn. Ginkgo nuts. Grilled. I mean, every imaginable way you could imagine, grilled in minute portions, and probably 20 to 25 courses. That was pretty memorable.
Oh, it sounds amazing. Okay, someone else is asking, which is a logical question, what tips do you have for shopping for vegetables?
Well, shop local, buy organic, shop your farmer's market when possible, shop seasonal. Barbara and I are very much seasonal eaters, and when food is in season, we eat it, and when food is not in season, we don't. It's and some people might think that would mean deprivation, but for us, it actually heightens the pleasure.
That's great. Any thoughts of a book on grilled fruit and grilled desserts?
Well, interesting you should ask that. Grilled fruit, the last chapter of How to Grill Vegetables is actually a fruit chapter, and it includes some really cool recipes, including there's a Hasselback apple. There's something I called a pineapple volcano, where it's actually grilled. It's brushed with molasses. It's crusted with spice sugar, and it's torched with a roofer's torch, and then the hollow pineapples filled with 151 ramen set on fire. That's the volcano part. A whole book on grilled fruits, probably not big enough market. But if you watch my Project Fire TV show on PBS, this season, the last show is going to be a show on grilled desserts. And it was we all put our heads together and thought, could we really get away with a whole barbecue show on desserts? And so I did. Yeah, I think we can. So you can look forward to that.
All right, let's go back to the basics. So let's say that I'm watching you and I'm talking to you, and I'm not a grill person. I mean, I don't own a grill. I don't really know what I'm doing when it comes to that.
Mitchell, I got a few extras over here. You know, if you want me to bring one over for you.
That I do know. But so what? Tell me how somebody should approach the idea of that they want to start grilling. What do they do?
Okay. Well, first thing you need to do is buy a grill. And the first decision you need to make is whether you want to get gas or charcoal. Gas has the convenience of push button ignition and turn of the knob heat control. Charcoal gives you the satisfaction of building a live fire. It's more versatile. You can smoke over charcoal. You can caveman over charcoal. So if you're willing to make that leap, and in my books, I explain, add, step by step, take you by the hand and walk you through how to start a charcoal fire. But that's your first step. Your second step is to learn the 5 methods of live fire cooking. And you mentioned something earlier about sort of teaching or professorial or something like that. But I do see the process of cookbook writing very much as an educational process. And I do try and teach, try and entertain, I try and give you good recipes. But I really want you to, it's that old teach a man to give a man a fish, or maybe I should say give a man a parsnip, and, he can eat for one day.
Right,
Teach him how to grill the parsnip. I was surprised you didn't mention parsnips, by the way, in your list there. I love parsnips. But at any rate, I try and teach you, learn the 5 methods of live fire cooking: direct grilling, indirect grilling, smoking, spit roasting, and caveman grilling. Learn how to tell when when your food is done. That's really important. And it's really easy with vegetables, right? Because you take a toothpick and you can pierce the vegetable easily. It's cooked. They're visual cues. You want that sort of leopard skin dappling on the outside. One of the beauties of vegetables is there are many vegetables that you can burn beyond recognition and they still taste excellent. One example of that is eggplant, charred peppers. So, if you're just starting out and you're worried about grilling your food, cook one of those 2 vegetables and you don't need to worry, because it'll be absolutely delicious no matter how much you cook it.
Well, I can also say that you also have a couple of books along those lines too, right? For people who are just starting out, right?
Yeah, I would say something like How to Grill, which is step-by-step 1,000-color photographs showing you every step of the way how to light a grill, how to prepare the grate, how to put the food on, how to turn it, how to tell when it's done. And there's a pretty big vegetable chapter in that. Being surrounded by so many vegetarians has kind of inspired me and forced me to include big vegetable chapters even in my meat-centric book.
All right. So my favorite, not my favorite, but by reading through this, one of the dishes that I think I'm going to make the first, I'll probably shock my wife, Rochelle, when I get to the grill and start making this. But those yams that you have here are unbelievable. Those char siu yams.
Yeah.
They look so delicious.
Okay. Well, all right. So that's an example, a little bit of how one can take a classic meat dish and convert it to a vegetable dish and come out a winner. So char siu, if you go to Chinatowns anywhere, you'll see strips of sort of reddish meat, ribs, ducks, strips of pork loin hanging in the shop window. And char siu, it literally means fork grilling, but it's meat that's marinated in a sweet licorice marinade that contains sugar, it contains soy sauce, so that's the sweet and salty, star anise and 5 spice powder, which gives it that kind of licorice sweetness. And I thought, well, why not do that with a sweet potato? The Koreans love grilled sweet potatoes, so do the Japanese. So you grill the sweet potato, and then you make this sweet char siu sauce. And then after grilling the sweet potatoes, you put them in a pan with that sauce, and you kind of char and caramelize. It's like sticky, sweet, salty, the finger-licking barbecue that happens to be on a sweet potato.
And the thing that I'm always so struck by is the amazing photography in your books. Whoever does all of that, putting it all together. I mean, I look at that meal and I go, my God, I just want to, I can't stop. I just want to grab it. It looks so absolutely real. All right. So I'm going to take you up on the challenge. Sell me on parsnips. It's
Okay.
not something that I really know much about or go for, but tell me about them.
I'm going to come back to them because I'm glad you mentioned the photography, and I have to just give you a little sneak behind the scenes of what happened to produce this book, and a shout out to my food stylist Nora Singley, who's not only with me with all my books, but also with me on my TV shows. So we shot this book. We put this book together at the height of COVID. All right, I finished writing it the first few months of COVID. To shoot the book had to be a lock set. Normally, I'm on the set, kind of supervising, my hands in the how-to photos. Couldn't do that because travel was out of the question. So Nora went up to a farm in upstate New York, and that's where the photos were done. We have a funny picture which I'm going to post on Facebook this week. It was the alternative to cover this book, and it was a picture of Nora with her face mask running through driving downpour rain, because it was raining during the whole photo shoot, with a platter full of food, umbrella over it to get it on the set for taping. It was just, it was an act of such heroism to get those photos shot. But anyway, fair words, butter, no parsnips. Here's what I do with parsnips. Parsnips, those jumbo albino cousins of carrots. I use a technique that I call pan grilling. And it's really good for dense vegetables like potatoes, Jerusalem artichokes, Brussels sprouts, parsnips. The parsnips are cut into pieces all about the size of your finger. They go in an aluminum foil pan. They are indirect grilled with butter for high heat, 400 degrees, for about 30 minutes to get them pretty soft. And then right at the end, the parsnips the pan gets put directly over the fire for direct grilling. So they kind of sizzle and brown in this butter. And it's super simple, but you wind up with, that has the crispness of a good French fry when you bite into it, soft creaminess of a mashed potato, the sort of sweetness of a parsnip, and then the butteriness and the wood smoke of the grill and the butteriness of the butter. It's, it's an astonishing vegetable.
Well, I think you've convinced me. I will give that a try for sure. Before we close, there is a very interesting question, I think. Talk about whether or not you have a favorite cookbook. Do you read them? Do you use them at all? And if you have any influences you want to talk about. You mentioned one with Willen, but are there other people, and Willen, are there other influences that you've had in your career?
Absolutely. Well, one big one, even for this book, is Jose Andres. And he wrote a fabulous vegetable cookbook, a very deeply personal vegetable cookbook. He did it by season. And I remember one dish that, I thought was so brilliant and sort of gave me the spark to kind of want to do the same thing. He took a roasted sweet potato and turned it into a sundae, right? Because it is sweet and ice cream to it. I don't remember what the toppings were, but
wow,
that kind of thinking. So that is a book that has had and an author that has had a very profound influence on me. Other cookbooks, I mean, Anne Willen's books are great. Nancy Silverton's books are great. Dan Barber's book, The Third Plate, less for what it had to say about recipes, there aren't any, but more what it had to say about sustainable, how the proper way to raise food, sustainable food, and the proper care, the care and dedication and passion that go into making amazing food. And that kind of food is an alternative to the industrial food that has been kind of forced on us. So those are big influences. One very quick anecdote, when typically in a normal year, I'd be on tour and I'd be going to 20 cities to promote this book, launch the book. Couldn't do it. But when I was on tour for the Brisket Chronicles, okay, I was eating at vegan restaurants and vegetarian restaurants in every city I went to because I was trying to get ideas for this book. And there's amazing vegan food. There's a restaurant in Philadelphia. It's called Veg, and the sister restaurant in Washington, D.C. is called Fancy Radish. And this is a guy who has all the chops of a Michelin star chef, but who became a vegan very early on, and wanted in his food to show that vegan food could muster every bit as much creativity as any carnivorous restaurant, probably even more creativity, because because he's eliminated such a large class of foods. He was the one that kind of taught me about how do you get smoke into a hard vegetable. If you try and smoke a turnip or a parsnip or a carrot, the smoke is going to sit on the surface because it's not porous the way meat is. So he does a quick parboil of those vegetables and then smokes them. The parboiling softens them. And that process, I've spent 20 years telling people not to, cardinal rule, don't boil your ribs. That's barbecue heresy. But now I'm telling people to parboil your vegetables. Kind of funny.
You've come a long way, Stephen.
Wow.
Anyway, I have to tell you, this has been so wonderful to be able to spend an hour with my friend and to talk food. I have to say I'm starving right now, but I just thank you so much. And this is the book. You can click on that little green bar and you can buy it now, or you can come into the store. And Stephen, thank you so much for being, here at Books and Books. And thank you for, just supporting what we do and supporting both the culinary community in South Florida as well as the literary community. You are such an asset and such a friend to us all.
Well, thank you, Mitchell. And if I can take an opportunity, I know many people watching this are not from Miami, to just thank you because you are the consummate bookseller, and your passionate commitment to literature and books have kept bookstores, independent bookstores, alive and flourishing. If you live in Miami, Mitchell is synonymous with the literary scene. You've done so much for the literary scene. And even if you don't live here, come check out his podcast and come visit the store. It's really a landmark of the highest order. So
thank you, Stephen.
Guys with dark glasses and gray hair and beards, man, we got to stick together.
Look at us, huh? But I will see you hopefully before you leave.
Absolutely.
Give my love to Barbara, and everybody out there, make sure you pick up How to Grill by Stephen Raichlen. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, Mitchell. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and grill on.
Yes.